Glad I did. Okay, it's starting to record, so I guess we're getting ready to.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, thank you for your service to Rotary. That's really great, so that's really great. So,
Well, it's good to meet people like you.
Yeah.
And good to get to know you better, Larry.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very impressed by the Rotary and everything they stand for and what they do, so it really is, so.
Okay, I guess we're getting ready to get started.
I know. They're thinking about it. so
I'm going to mute myself here so I don't embarrass anybody.
Yeah, I got you.
Welcome to the February 2nd meeting of the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville. Zoom attendees, please mute yourself and communicate through the chat function. Our invocation will be given by Charlie Fetzer, and then William Milne will lead us in the pledge.
Please bow your heads. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all together, giving us great food, great camaraderie, a beautiful view, and a great group of people all working together for a good cause. Amen.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, William. I'd like to call Lee Davis up for a pop-up, please.
Thank you very much, President Ike. I'd like to draw your attention to the flyers I have on the table. This is concerning our upcoming Valentine's social, and we're having it at Cross Creek Steakhouse on Lane Avenue on Wednesday, February the 16th. I want to remind everyone to bring a guest that may be interested in joining our club. It'd be a great opportunity to introduce them to our club. We do have a limit of 50 for this event, so we'll be sending out a link for people to sign up in the newsletter. And I wanted to also recommend that we will be accepting donations for our community health outreach, and there's a short list of items needed. So I look forward to seeing everyone there. Yes, William. The dinner, what are we eating at the Cross Creek?
He said drinks. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. We will move, since that's the 16th, that event's the 16th, we will not have a meeting, a lunchtime meeting that week. So we're going to move the board meeting forward a week. So the board meeting will meet right after this meeting next week. Be sure to check DACDB, check the calendar for future events. President-elect Sean is continuing her streak of awesome speakers and programs, and Patty is keeping that calendar updated for us. Speaking of Patty, how about a round of applause for Patty, Stu, and Joe Springer? Those three make everything go smooth every week. They make it look easy, but it's not. This week's Family of Rotary is Doug Benefiel. Doug, please.
I am not filling in for Rahul. William Milne has accepted a position with Cross Country Mortgage as a senior loan officer. That's exciting. Past President Mark Frost, everybody got his obituary. There's no service planned yet, but there will be a celebration of life in Melrose, Florida, later in the spring. And then good news from John Barley. He's been moved from St. Vincent's to Brooks. We're excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Sergeant of Arms Rahul Sharma is ill today. So send thoughts and prayers to Rahul and his family. And Carter Rosenblum is going to be filling in for the Sergeant of Arms report.
I am filling in for Raul today. And I guess with that charge, I wasn't going to tell a joke, but now I will. So an elderly man walks into a jewelry store and he's got this beautiful blonde girlfriend with him. And he walks into the store and he looks at the sales lady and he says, I want a really special ring for this woman. And so the sales lady looks at him and goes, okay, here's a nice $2,000 ring. So the guy says, no, I don't think you understand. I want a really special ring. So she pulls out a $40,000 ring. He goes, that's perfect. I'll take that one. So he pulls out a check and he goes, is it okay if I write a check? And she says, yeah. And so he writes the check and he says, I guess you're going to want to, make sure this clears. So I'll come back on Monday to get the ring once it clears. So he comes back Monday. He has a huge smile on his face. And the woman goes, I don't know why you're smiling. We tried to cash a check and you only have $100 in your account. It bounced. He goes, yeah, but did you ask me about my weekend? So we have two guests with us today. First, I'd like to introduce Ken Smallwood. He's with the Orange Park Rotary and he's a past district governor. And past President Jimmy Kelly has a guest. Would you like to introduce your guest too, please? Does Mike Crumpler have a guest? Thank you, Jackie Culver would like to introduce our speaker today.
I've got a better introduction than that. Sorry. Chandra is my guest, so welcome. Today, I'd like to introduce to you Chandra Manning. As I said before, she is the Chief Operating Officer of Jacksonville Speech and Hearing Center. If you're not familiar with Jacksonville Speech and Hearing Center, we are an over 70-year-old nonprofit here in Jacksonville serving the speech and hearing needs of everyone in our community, regardless of their ability to pay. So Chandra came to us in 2019, and if you go and look her up on our website, she's described as useful, and she is very, very useful. She oversees all our clinical operations, saw us through COVID when the governor shut down our operations, made sure that we switched to teletherapy for all our kiddos, got hearing aids delivered to people who needed them. Gosh, she's overseeing our expansion to Southern Duval near St. Johns County. So we have a second clinical operation and is currently overseeing the launch of our mobile clinic that is coming soon. So she's here to talk to us a little bit today about communication. So welcome.
I'm feeling like maybe I should have worn my heels today. I am a mover, so I'm going to stand in front of the podium. I also am someone that likes participation, so I'll be asking questions, and when I do, they are not rhetorical questions. I would love to hear responses from you. I am going to be talking to you guys today about communication. Communication matters. Specifically is what it is, what I talk about. Here we go.
And I'm going to be aware of my time here. I'll start just by sharing a little bit about our organization. Is there something that I can click through or just a point? All right, let's go to the next one then. All right. Jackie's already told you about Jacksonville Speech and Hearing Center, so I am going to breeze through this. We're a nonprofit organization here in Jacksonville. We're actually the only nonprofit organization that serves pediatrics through adults for speech and hearing, so providing all of those comprehensive services under one roof. You can just go ahead and click straight through this. We'll speed through this one right here. Obviously, we treat speech and hearing needs for individuals of all ages, and we employ audiologists and speech language pathologists for that. You can find us in 3 places. We have our main clinic, which is downtown Jacksonville, just on the outskirts of downtown. We just opened our new South Clinic a couple of months ago on Phillips Highway. And then you can find a lot of information about us on our website, which is shcjax.org. I'm going to start with a little anatomy lesson. Do we have anyone that's really, really up on their anatomy here? So I don't embarrass myself. Okay. All right. This is how our ear works, right? Most of us are familiar with the ear canal. You can go ahead and click through this one too for me. The ear canal, it collects all of the sound. It hits the eardrum. The eardrum transfers the sound into these 3 little bones right here in the orange. There are 3 little bones in there, and the bones then process that sound and put it through the little thing that looks like a seashell. It's called the cochlea. And there are hair cells in that carry the different sound waves and then send it up to your auditory nerve. So we have this part of our hearing, which is the ear that kind of captures the sound. And then we have this part of our hearing, which is the brain that processes the sound. So it's received here. This part says, oh, that's a bird chirping outside. That's your dog. They want to be let in. That's your child. You can ignore that sound. And then we are going to talk about hearing loss, kind of why it happens, why we get hearing loss. And you can go ahead and put all of these up right here. We have a couple of different types of hearing loss. We have hearing loss that's conductive. So have any of you ever had sinus pressure? Your ears feel plugged up, right? Any of you had, earwax blockages, those kinds of things, right? This is a conductive loss. These are things that can be corrected with some kind of medication, sometimes surgical things. If you have a ruptured eardrum, these are conductive losses. What we see most often is a sensory neural hearing loss. So I showed you guys that little seashell part of our hearing that has little hair cells in it. Those hair cells get damaged over time or due to just noise exposure and noise pollution. And as those hair cells get damaged, they don't regenerate. They don't grow back. There's no way to make them grow back. There's nothing that we can do to regain those. So this is a sensory neural hearing loss. It just happens. We can't recover from that. Prolonged exposure to noise will do it. Aging will do it. All kinds of things that we experience throughout life will cause this particular type. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit is ototoxic medications also. So if you have cancer, it's really important to treat cancer. Cancer medications damage those hair cells. So I always share this one because I think it's funny when people are like, hearing loss doesn't run in my family. It's okay. I'm fine. Hearing loss is not something that people are immune from. All of these individuals, do you recognize any of these individuals up here? Can you see that picture? It's kind of light. So it's not something that's just for the elderly. It's not something for people that are just unhealthy. Hearing loss is something that affects a lot of people, including all of these individuals. I'm going to touch on this because it's something that I'm always asked about when I talk about hearing loss, and that is the ringing in your ears. So this is where I ask you guys a question. How do you say that word? People always ask, is it tinnitus or is it tinnitus? Okay, somebody tell me, what is arthritis? Somebody tell me, what is tonsillitis? We get a theme here. Somebody tell me, what is tinnitus? There's no inflammation in the ringing in your ears. So the correct pronunciation is actually tinnitus, because itis is an inflammation, and there's no inflammation that causes this ringing in your ears. All right. Something new. There you go. I will also add that the American Tinnitus Association does accept it pronounced both ways at this point. All right. So what causes tinnitus? The number one cause of tinnitus is hearing loss. And when we're talking about tinnitus, you think about tinnitus sort of like a stuffy nose. Your symptom is a stuffy nose, but what causes the stuffy nose? Is it that you're having allergies or sinus problems, or you slept the wrong way, and just all kinds of things? What causes it? And that's the diagnosis. So with tinnitus, what you're looking for is what's causing your tinnitus. It can be blood pressure issues. If you have diabetes, you may have tinnitus. If you're somebody that's really stressed out all the time, you may have tinnitus, but the number one cause is hearing loss. So you get a diagnosis, and then you treat that diagnosis, and you generally have some relief from it. So it's important to know that most people experience at least a little bit of tinnitus in their lifetime. So have any of you ever heard that ringing in your ears? That is almost every single hand, because most of us experience some of it. You want to treat it when it becomes something that you have for a week at a time or more, or it doesn't seem to go away. It rings a little bit and then it goes away. That's normal. And then something else that you may want to know is that tinnitus is not always just a ringing in your ears. Sometimes tinnitus presents as like a squishing sound, shh, 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 or music. We had one patient whose tinnitus was the song Silent Night on repeat all the time, not in December. So we wanted to treat that. Luckily, her tinnitus was actually caused by hearing loss. We treated the hearing loss. She no longer hears Silent Night on repeat every moment of her life. It is treatable. It is not curable. You can't take a pill to get rid of it. You can't make it like reverse whatever it, caused it kind of thing. Like if hearing loss caused it, you can't reverse that, but you can treat the symptom. All right. This is no secret. Our bodies are systemic. If I say the hip bone's connected to the, thank you. There's always somebody that answers it for me. I appreciate that. So we know that this is connected to that. Well, our hearing is no different. Like I said, if you have high blood pressure or you have diabetes, you're more likely to have hearing loss. On the reverse side, if you have hearing loss, you're more likely to experience falls and ambulance hospital visits, and you're more likely to have depression. And if you are someone that may have dementia or Alzheimer's and you don't treat your hearing loss, it's going to be more progressive. So we want to make sure that we're treating our hearing loss because it's a whole body issue. It's not just our ears. It's not just hearing our wife or our husband nag at us. It is taking care of our whole body health. And this, I think, is probably the most concerning part about hearing. In recent years, they've discovered, though people don't really seem to know, that when you're not receiving that signal to your brain, so we talked about this part of our hearing, not just this part, when you're not receiving that signal to your brain starts doing things it's not supposed to do. It will repurpose that part of your brain, and then it takes a long time to retrain it. Or in some studies, they're showing that part of your brain is physically shrinking in size. And that's a little scary to me. So when do you take action? There are several ways to know that it's time to take action. You can go ahead and pull all these up. There we go. All right. So tell me, how many of you have had a physical in the last year? How many of you have had an eye exam in the last year? How about seeing your dentist in the last year? I'll give you a little space there, maybe 2. How many of you have had your hearing checked in the last year? Not as many hands. And I won't call you out on this directly, but the rule of thumb is that you should have your hearing tested annually after you're 60 years of age. Just the same as you get your blood pressure checked and monitored and your eye exams and you go see your dentist. If your hearing was something you could see, what would your hearing look like right now? Do you even know? We get our eyes checked because as our eyesight starts to go, you can't see what's in front of you. But as your hearing starts to go, you just get closer to whatever it is you're trying to hear, or you ask them to bring the sound closer to you, but that doesn't solve the problem. Just like squinting your eyes doesn't make your eyesight better. You do need to have it diagnosed and treated. So if it was something that was visible to you, what would it look like today? You can go ahead and pull all these up too. I'm gonna kind of go through these. There are a lot of things that we don't realize about hearing loss because it's a progressive thing. By the time you realize you have hearing loss, it's probably worse than you think it was, or it is. So these are some things that are really helpful to keep in mind when you're like, should I get my hearing checked? Is it time? If you think people are mumbling, I'll give it to you, they may be. Especially these days. But if you think people are mumbling, we want to look at this part of your hearing and see why you think people are mumbling. If people come in and tell you the television volume is too loud, if you find yourself using closed captioning a lot, if anyone in your life even jokingly says, you should probably get your hearing checked, it's a hard thing to talk about. If someone that cares about you says that, you should probably listen to them. And then the number one thing is if you are 60 years of age or older, you should be keeping an eye on it. All right. Treatment options. These are the parts we don't really like to talk about. You can go ahead and pull all these up too. All right. So for treatment options, like I said, if you have that conductive loss, you could be talking about medication. You may just need some Sudafed. Otherwise, you could be looking at surgery. There are some people whose hearing is so far beyond the help of hearing aids that you need to fix something in here. Or you may have some eustachian tube issues that are causing your hearing loss. So sometimes surgery is an option for correcting your hearing loss. Therapy may also be really helpful. And this has a little bit more to do with when we're talking about tinnitus. Because it's a process that you have to work through to get rid of your tinnitus. So therapy may be needed for hearing loss. And then the number one thing we use to treat hearing loss is hearing aids. And people go, oh, but they're so expensive. This is true. They can be very expensive. But when my ophthalmologist said to me, your daughter really needs surgery. We've done everything that we can do. She needs surgery. It's going to cost this many thousands of dollars. I didn't go, she's getting by. We're good. It's a medical part of treating hearing loss, hearing aids. And that is how we need to start viewing it. It is a medical part of treating hearing loss. And so, yes, there's a cost associated with maintaining your cognitive processing. And that cost should never be too high. The question then becomes, what can hearing aids really do, right? Hearing aids can do several things for you, but there are some key factors to the success in doing it. You know, if you have your knee replaced and all you do is go home and sit down on your couch, how well is your knee going to work? It's not. So there's a part of it that is on you when you do talk about hearing aids. How many people have heard about somebody or knows somebody that has hearing aids that leaves them in a drawer? I work in the field, so I know several of those. They do not help when they are sitting in a drawer. So whatever is causing you to put them in the drawer, you need to work with your audiologist to figure that out. So rule number one is to find a professional that you trust. Because when you trust that person's recommendation and you feel like they are there to help you, then you can work through these things that are causing you to not treat something that you really need to be treating. You want to be compliant and patient with yourself, use good communication strategies, which we'll get into. But the number one thing that you really need to have are realistic expectations. How many of you played sports in high school and college? What kind of sports? Yell them out. Football, tennis, track, that's my person. Swimming, all right. How many of you play those sports as well today as you did in high school or college? Where are those hands? Where'd they go? We got one, all right. So your ear does not work as well today as it did when you were 20. Hearing aids are not going to make your ears work as well today as they worked when you were 20. You have to have realistic expectations about what treatment processes can do. I'm going to touch on this because it's coming soon. Over-the-counter hearing aids are set to be released into stores September of 2022. That is this year, just a few months away. Very exciting. We are really hopeful that what it'll do is get people that have a mild loss started on their hearing healthcare. But like I said, it's a progressive thing. So we have to be careful that by the time we start looking at treating it, we're not beyond that mild stage, because you shouldn't be self-diagnosing things that are more progressive. Also, you have to be careful not to wear them if you only have hearing loss in one ear, because our hearing changes bilaterally, about the same. So if it's not the same in both ears, unless you're a recreational shooter, then there's something else we need to look at. So you don't want to use over-the-counter hearing aids when those do come out if you have hearing loss only in one ear. All right, communication strategies. This is my favorite part because I think most of us can use these, whether you have hearing loss or not. These are just really great communication strategies. And the first one is to face the person you're talking to. Because whether you have hearing loss or not, you read lips, and you probably don't realize it. We all use lip reading as a compensatory strategy. So having that direct view of someone is going to be really helpful. The next one is to not shout. Do any of you know someone with hearing loss and the first thing you do is raise your voice? Like, oh, I need to be louder around them. You don't need to be louder around them, because what's happening is you're taking this sound that's distorted for them and you're just making it bigger. That's not what we want to do. Instead, we want to slow our speech, because then it gives them a little bit of time to take this and figure out what it is. So you slow your speech instead of raising your volume. This one's funny to me. 90% of being married is yelling, "What?" from the other room. Are any of you married in here? All right. So can anyone tell me, in which direction does sound travel? Wouldn't that be nice? Sound pretty much travels straight, which means it doesn't travel out of the kitchen, down the hall, into the office. It doesn't turn like that. It bounces off of things and eventually makes it to them. So it's not helpful when you're talking to someone from another room. In my house, if you're initiating the conversation, you go to that person. And then the next thing is you get their attention. I am one of those people that has 15 tabs open in a web browser throughout the day. Are there any other people like that? So you need to get my attention. You need to get me on the tab I need to be on first. That's everyone. So I say to my husband, hey, we're going to go have dinner at the Smiths tomorrow at 5. And what he probably heard was something tomorrow at 5. So what I needed to do was, hey, and wait for him to respond. So I know that all of the other things that he's hearing or thinking about right in that moment have kind of processed out, and I've got his attention. And then I tell him, we're going to go have dinner at the Smiths tomorrow at 5. So that's a great way to initiate conversation. Make sure that you have their attention first. And then advocate for others. Nobody likes to admit that they're struggling. If you see someone struggling, then help them out. You know, say, hey, can you repeat that? Or can you say that in a different way? Or why don't you say that directly to so-and-so over here? So if you advocate for others, that's really, really helpful. But you also have to advocate for yourself. During the pandemic, I saw several people that wore little stickers or signs that said, I'm deaf. I can't see you speaking through your mask. And they advocated for themselves. And you have to do that too. If you're not hearing the whole thing, say, slow down for me. Just slow down a minute. All right. We can go on to the next. I'll touch on this only because it actually is an issue. Obviously, I told you we all use lip reading, whether we realize it or not. So the masks are harmful in that way. But what we're also finding is that COVID and COVID treatments have increased the outcome or increased hearing loss. So right now, the statistic is that about 8% of people who have had COVID are experiencing residual hearing loss. About 15% of those people are experiencing tinnitus from COVID or COVID treatments. So it is affecting us in this area. And we have some options. We actually have clear masks for all of our providers so they can see mouths and lip reading, especially for our deaf patients. And we offer telehealth options. So those are some of our solutions for it. We can skip past this one. Preventative strategies. This helps you not need to see an audiologist later down the road. Like I said, we're systemic. Anything that affects your circulatory system is going to affect your hearing. Potassium is really healthy for that. So anything that's high in potassium is going to be really good for you as far as a preventative measure. If you do have high blood pressure or diabetes or hypertension or stress, control those things as soon as possible. Follow the instructions of your physicians so that they don't affect other parts of your body like your hearing. And those are your preventative measures. Insurance. So I said hearing aids are expensive. Way back when I started doing this, insurance did not cover hearing aids. There were so few insurance carriers that covered hearing aids, but they're starting to realize it's not an ancillary thing. One of our patients used to joke that insurance covers everything from the neck down. They don't cover your eyes or your ears or your teeth, but they are now. They have discount programs added to their insurance, but they're acknowledging that it affects your whole health, and it's important to them that you seek treatment and that you have that option available. So most insurance companies are offering coverage, but does anyone work in insurance, health insurance in here? It's really confusing. So talk to your providers about what's available, because your providers know even better than your primary care physicians what's out there for you. All right. So I have given you all of the information that I know, that I've learned from audiologists and working in this field over the last several years. And now I want to ask you, with this information, what are you going to do with it? And see if there are any questions. Yes. Okay.
I wanted Carter to get as far away as possible. Now I had to run. You're saying that they're going to be available in the stores.
Yes.
You see in some magazines where now they've got these $29.95 that just clip on like the real ones. Is that a true waste of time, or is there any benefit to that at all?
I can't say that there's not a benefit to it. When you're talking about those that you currently see out there that are $30, they say you get what you pay for a reason. $30 isn't going to do you much good. But if you don't have a diagnosis and you're not looking at what your hearing loss looks like, you could be doing more damage than good. You could not need something like that. And they kind of just increase everything across the board, where a hearing aid is going to be more matched to your prescriptive target. So it just increases the sounds that you need to hear, not the ones you don't need to have increased.
Do people have to have a referral to come visit your facility, or can they just say, oh, I heard your presentation today and I need to come see you?
I wish that were the case. Yes, and it's something that people don't understand. It is that it is an ancillary option for most insurances. It's an ancillary benefit. So you do have to have a referral from a physician to get a hearing test, and they may say, no, with your particular plan, you don't need a referral. So I'll clarify this. That is true. You do not need a referral to schedule a visit at our office. But if you want a hearing test, that needs to be ordered by a physician. So you're welcome to come in and sit there and talk to us, or you can get a referral from a physician and we'll get your hearing checked, and you can still sit there and talk to us.
The hardest time I have hearing is at a party with ambient noise. What do you do about that?
Parties are going to be a challenge for people with normal hearing. That is a normal thing. There is a lot of noise pollution at a party. And so if you have hearing loss, you get hearing aids. Hearing aids have directional microphones. So they do a little bit more of the processing for you, the brain processing, and they say, this sound's coming from here, this sound's coming from here, but I'm talking to the person in front of me, this is where I'm going to focus that. If you don't have hearing loss, then the best thing you can do is just face the person you're talking to.
Do you find when you wear a mask, you don't hear as well?
Obviously, there are some attenuation issues, but no, I think for the most part, it's a misconception. What you're losing is the lip reading.
Okay, and finally, do you know about bone phones, the headphones that go in your head instead of going to your ears? They transmit the noise through the jawline.
Yeah, bone anchored hearing aid. But yeah, yes, those are, again, for a very specific type of hearing loss. That's not something you want to use if it's not something you need. I think there was someone over here.
I have this kind of falls on Carl. I've got a friend of mine who ran for public office a few years back, and he had hearing issues, and he went to Costco and he's walking through and they said, hey, we'll give you a hearing test and 2 hearing aids for $800. And he bought them and he wore them at rallies and all when there were a lot of people. And he said it did clarify things a little bit more, that it sounded real mumbly and all when he didn't have them in, and a lot of people were talking to him and that. So the ones that we get for $29.99, no, but maybe something a little higher up the line.
Well, Costco actually dispenses sort of a stripped down version of the same thing audiologists dispense. So they do dispense a high quality hearing aid, digitally programmable hearing aid. It's matched to your prescriptive target. So you're correct. It is essentially the same thing that we would be looking at in our clinic.
Hi, you mentioned something about like if you're not hearing or not using the brain part, the brain could shrink. Is it possible with more use the brain can grow back or gain what was lost?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Before some recent studies, the answer was thought to be no. But there are recent studies out that are showing if you play a musical instrument or you learn how to play a musical instrument. So the study is 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week. After 6 months, you're going to have a cognitive improvement, and you do not lose that cognitive improvement, you retain it. So the answer is yes, studies are showing that we can do that, as opposed to, those brain apps that claim that they keep your brain alert. If you stop doing those activities, you lose that alertness. This particular study shows that you retain it.
More question?
Can they be repaired? The question was, do you repair hearing aids?
We do repair hearing aids. Hearing aids, like any electronic device, have a shelf life. And like iPhones and things like that, they come out with newer versions of it every so often. The shelf life is about 5 years. So a hearing aid that's within 5 years can generally be repaired. They still manufacture parts for those. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh. Hearing screenings here today after the meeting. How about that? So line up right after the meeting, hearing screenings. Thank you. Thank you, Chandra. Awesome presentation. Thank you so much. Next week, our speaker is going to be Dr. John Avendano from FSCJ. We will be meeting here live next week for that presentation. Also simulcast on Zoom. The following week, we will not have lunch here at the River Club. It's our Valentine's social, February 16th at Cross Creek. That does not take the place of February 14th, Valentine's Day gifts, ladies and gentlemen. You still have to provide Valentine's Day gifts February 14th, February 16th, in addition to, not in lieu of a. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Ken Baker will lead us in our four-way test. Our quote for the day is, "Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness." Desmond Tutu.